All right, so today we're going deep into a story
Okay.
about family extremism and the struggle to break free from a toxic past.
Yeah,
We've got excerpts from a screenplay
right.
that really hit home for me, and I'm really looking forward to unpacking it with you.
Yeah, it's a story that resonates in our current climate.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us that extremist ideologies can really seep into families,
Yeah,
impacting multiple generations.
exactly. Our main character is a man named John,
Okay.
a former construction worker
Mhm.
who uh, got caught up in the alt-right movement
Right.
after Trump's 2016
Yeah.
election. Now he's desperately trying to prevent his teenage son, Michael, from following the same path.
The screenplay cleverly uses flashbacks
Okay.
to reveal how John initially got drawn into this world.
Okay.
His dad, a retired police officer, felt increasingly resentful
Okay.
towards minorities and immigrants.
Hmm.
He would constantly complain about affirmative action and political correctness,
Right.
blaming them for his perceived struggles.
So those seeds of resentment were planted early on for John.
Absolutely. And the screenplay portrays how those feelings
Yeah.
were amplified by online echo chambers and social media algorithms.
Right.
John found himself surrounded by content
Yeah.
that confirmed his existing biases
Right.
and introduced him to increasingly extreme viewpoints.
Oh, wow.
He started spending hours on forums and following influencers
Yeah.
who peddled conspiracy theories and promoted a sense of white grievance.
It's scary how easy it is to get sucked into those online rabbit holes.
It really is. And then a tragedy struck.
Oh, yeah.
That became a turning point for John.
Okay.
His father, while driving home late one night, was carjacked and killed.
Oh, wow.
The perpetrators were two young men, one black and one Hispanic.
Oh, wow. That must have been devastating.
It was, and for John, it solidified all his existing prejudices.
Yeah.
His grief and anger were channeled into a burning hatred,
Right.
fueled by the rhetoric he'd been consuming online.
So this event basically pushed him over the edge
Yeah.
and into full-blown extremism.
Exactly. Shortly after his father's death,
Mm-hmm.
John appeared on a local news segment about the rising crime rates.
Okay.
He gave a passionate, albeit hate-filled speech that went viral.
Wow.
This clip turned him into a minor internet celebrity
Oh, wow.
within far-right circles, further solidifying his beliefs.
It's like a feedback loop, right? The
Huh.
more extreme he became, the more validation he received online.
Precisely. And the screenplay highlights how groups like the Patriots Front,
Okay.
the fictional alt-right group John joins,
Right.
prey on this vulnerability.
Yeah.
They offer a sense of belonging, purpose, and camaraderie,
Mm-hmm.
especially to those who feel alienated or disenfranchised.
Okay, so we've got John now a prominent figure in this extremist group,
Right.
and his son Michael growing up in this highly charged environment.
Yeah.
The screenplay mentions that Michael was only 8 years old when John became radicalized.
Yes, and the impact on Michael is profound.
Yeah.
He witnesses his father's transformation. The anger, the rallies, the constant online battles. The screenplay subtly portrays how this exposure begins to warp Michael's own worldview.
It's like he's being groomed, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
to follow in his father's footsteps.
That's a very astute observation.
Thanks.
And the screenplay introduces us to the leader of the Patriots Front,
Okay.
a charismatic and manipulative figure named Richard Grant.
Okay.
He recognizes Michael's potential,
Yeah.
seeing him as a valuable asset to the movement.
So Richard is basically grooming Michael to become the next generation of extremists.
It's a subtle but chilling dynamic.
Wow.
Richard uses tactics similar to those that drew John in,
Okay.
appealing to Michael's sense of loyalty, belonging, and purpose.
Right.
He feeds him carefully curated content,
Yeah.
confirming his biases and painting a distorted picture of the world.
There's also a girlfriend in the picture, right?
Yes.
Someone who sees through John's facade.
Her name is Sarah.
Sarah. Okay.
Initially, she was drawn to John's passionate nature
Okay.
and rebellious spirit. But as he became more entrenched in the alt-right movement,
Right.
she grew increasingly disturbed.
I'm guessing she tried to pull him back from the brink.
She did.
Yeah.
There were several scenes where Sarah confronts John
Okay.
about his hateful rhetoric and his affiliation with the Patriots Front.
Mm-hmm.
She points out the hypocrisy, the bigotry,
Yeah.
and the dangers of the path he's chosen.
But her pleas fall on deaf ears.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
John's too far gone at this point.
Right.
Blinded by his anger and the intoxicating sense of camaraderie he finds within the group,
Yeah.
he dismisses Sarah's concerns as liberal brainwashing
Oh, wow.
and accuses her of betraying him.
So we've got this tragic setup.
Right.
John consumed by hate. Sarah trying to pull him back,
Yeah.
and Michael, a young boy, witnessing it all
Uh.
and being subtly manipulated by Richard?
Right.
Where does the story go from here?
Well, John's rave and paranoia eventually lead him
Uh-oh.
to a horrific act of violence.
Okay.
He brutally attacks two young men he believes were involved in a drug deal
Oh.
that indirectly led to his father's death.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shocking turning point in the story,
Yeah.
highlighting the devastating consequences of unchecked hate.
And how does Michael react to this act of violence?
That's the chilling part.
Okay.
He witnesses the entire event,
Yeah.
and instead of being horrified,
Oh, no.
he's mesmerized.
Wow.
He sees his father as a hero,
Oh, wow.
a warrior fighting back against an unjust system.
Right.
It's a stark illustration of how exposure to violence
Yeah.
can desensitize and normalize it,
Right.
especially for a young and impressionable mind.
So this act of violence sends John to prison.
Right, exactly.
And that's where he finally starts to confront the reality of his choices.
Initially, John clings to his extremist beliefs,
Okay.
seeking out and aligning himself with the white supremacist gang
Right.
within the prison walls.
Yeah.
But over time, his experiences began to chip away
Okay.
at his deeply held convictions. He witnesses the hypocrisy of his fellow inmates,
Okay.
their petty power struggles, and their casual cruelty.
It sounds like he's starting to have second thoughts.
He is, and a pivotal moment comes when he meets a black inmate named David.
David.
Despite John's racist past,
Yeah.
David treats him with kindness and respect,
Wow.
forcing John to confront his own prejudices.
So this encounter with David starts to crack John's hardened exterior.
Yes.
Okay.
David embodies the very values that John and his group claim to uphold.
Okay.
Hard work, integrity, and a commitment to justice.
Mm-hmm.
He reveals the emptiness of their hateful ideology
Right.
by simply living those values.
Okay, so now we have John questioning his beliefs
Yes.
and being challenged by David's example.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else play a role in his potential transformation?
Yes. John also receives visits
Okay.
from his former high school English teacher, Mr. Thompson,
Right.
who has always seen the potential in him. Mr. Thompson encourages John to take responsibility for his actions
Right.
and to confront the hate that's consumed him.
It sounds like John is starting down a difficult path of redemption while still in prison.
Mm-hmm.
I'm eager to hear what happens next.
Yeah.
So after 3 years in prison, John is released.
Yeah.
The screenplay really captures the tension of his return home.
Right.
His family is wary, to say the least.
It's a delicate situation.
Yeah.
John's wife, Sarah, is trying to rebuild their relationship,
Right.
but the scars of his past actions run deep.
Yeah.
His mother, while relieved to have him back, is still heartbroken and struggling to reconcile the son she knew
Yeah.
with the man he became.
And what about Michael?
Right?
He's a teenager now, right?
Yes. Michael is 15,
Okay.
and that's where the story gets even more complex
Yikes.
while John was in prison.
Yeah.
Michael continued to be influenced by Richard and the Patriots Front.
Oh, wow.
He's adopted their rhetoric, their style of dress,
Yeah.
even their online mannerisms.
It's heartbreaking to think about the impact this must have had on John.
Yeah.
He goes to prison for a hate-fueled crime,
Right.
and in his absence, his son gets further indoctrinated.
Exactly. It's like a nightmare scenario for John.
Mhm.
He's trying to redeem himself
Right.
to break free from his past.
Yeah.
But he sees his own son heading down the same dangerous path.
The screenplay mentions a particularly poignant scene
Right.
where John discovers a stockpile of Patriots Front propaganda hidden in Michael's room.
Yes, it's a turning point.
Wow.
John realizes the extent of Richard's influence over Michael
Right.
and how deeply his son has been drawn into this ideology.
So what does John do?
He tries to talk to Michael,
Oh.
to reason with him. He
Yeah.
shares his own experiences in prison, the people he met, the things he witnessed.
Right.
He tries to explain the emptiness and the destructiveness of hate.
Does Michael listen?
Not really. He sees John as weak,
Oh, wow.
as someone who's been brainwashed by the liberal system. He parrots back the talking points.
Yeah.
He's learned from Richard and the other members of the Patriots Front.
That must be incredibly frustrating for John
Yeah.
to see his own son rejecting him and embracing the very ideology that he's now trying to escape.
It is, and it pushes John to make a risky decision.
Okay, what is it?
He decides to confront Richard directly.
Oh, wow.
He wants to expose him as a fraud
Right.
to sever his influence over Michael.
What happens during this confrontation?
It's a tense
Okay.
and emotionally charged scene.
Yeah.
John accuses Richard of exploiting Michael, of profiting from his father's death,
Wow.
of twisting his words and manipulating him for his own gain.
Does Richard deny it?
He doesn't.
Oh, wow.
He's incredibly smug.
Really?
Almost enjoying John's rage.
Yeah.
He taunts John, telling him that he can't escape his past,
Oh, no.
that he'll always be a part of the movement,
Right.
whether he likes it or not.
So this confrontation doesn't really go as John planned.
No, it backfires in a way. Michael witnesses the whole thing
Oh, geez.
and sees his father as unhinged, unstable.
Yeah.
It pushes him further away from John
Right.
and deeper into the arms of the Patriots Front.
That's such a tragic twist.
Yeah,
John's trying to save his son, but his actions are actually having the opposite effect.
exactly. And the screenplay doesn't offer easy answers here.
Yeah.
It highlights the complexities of this situation
Right.
and the challenges of breaking free from the grip of extremism, especially when it's intertwined with family dynamics.
So what happens next?
Oh,
How does the story resolve this incredibly tense situation?
well, the tension continues to escalate.
Okay.
John, desperate to save his son,
Yeah.
starts monitoring Michael's online activity,
Okay.
trying to stay one step ahead of him.
Right.
He even infiltrates some of the online forums and chat groups
Wow.
that Michael frequents.
That seems like a dangerous game to play.
It is, and
Right.
it puts John in a very precarious position. He's
Yeah.
walking a tightrope, trying to maintain contact with Michael, while also trying to expose the manipulative tactics of the Patriots Front.
Is he successful?
To a degree.
Yeah.
He starts to gather evidence of Richard's criminal activities,
Like what?
fraud, money laundering,
No,
even connections to extremist groups overseas. He tries to use this information to discredit Richard and to pull Michael away from the group.
How does Michael react to this?
He dismisses it as fake news,
Oh.
as part of a conspiracy to silence Richard.
Right.
He's completely bought into the Patriots Front worldview,
Yeah.
believing that they're the only ones fighting for truth and justice.
So the rift between John and Michael continues to widen.
Yes, and the story takes another tragic turn
No.
when Michael, fueled by the rhetoric he's consumed,
Okay.
gets involved in a violent confrontation at a protest rally.
What happens?
He and a group of Patriots Front members
Okay.
clash with counter-protesters. Things escalate quickly, and Michael ends up seriously injuring a young woman.
That's awful.
It is, and it's a devastating blow to John.
Yeah.
He sees his son, the boy he's desperately trying to save,
Right.
replicating his own mistakes,
Yeah.
spiraling down the same path of violence and hate.
This is all so heavy what happens to Michael.
He's arrested and charged with assault,
Oh, wow.
facing serious jail time. He's
Yeah.
finally forced to confront the consequences of his actions.
Does this wake-up call change him?
That's where the second part of the screenplay ends.
Okay.
We're left with this cliffhanger. Will Michael follow in his father's footsteps and end up hardened and embittered by the prison system?
Right.
Or will this experience be the catalyst for him to finally break free from the grip of extremism?
Wow. I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to see what happens next. So we left off with Michael facing jail time for his actions at that protest rally. I have to know what happens to him. Does he go down the same path his father did?
Well, the third act of this screenplay takes an interesting turn. Michael does end up serving time, but his experience is vastly different from John's.
How so?
Remember Mr. Thompson, John's former teacher?
Yeah.
He becomes a sort of mentor to Michael,
Oh, wow.
visiting him regularly in prison and encouraging him to use this time for reflection and growth.
That's incredible. It's like a parallel to what David and Mr. Thompson did for John, offering guidance and support during a difficult time.
Exactly. And Mr. Thompson introduces Michael to books, philosophy, and different perspectives on the world.
Okay.
He challenges Michael's preconceived notions.
Right.
And encourages him to think critically about the ideology he's embraced.
This mentorship starts to chip away at Michael's hardened exterior.
It does. There are scenes where Michael struggles to reconcile his ingrained beliefs
Right.
with the new information he's encountering.
Yeah.
He grapples with guilt, shame, and the realization that he's hurt innocent people.
It sounds like a painful but necessary process of self-discovery.
It is, and the screenplay doesn't shy away from the messiness of this transformation. Michael has setbacks, moments of anger and resentment,
Right.
but gradually he begins to question the narratives he's been fed and to develop a more nuanced understanding of the world.
And what about John? How does he react to Michael's imprisonment and this potential for change?
It's a mix of emotions for John.
Okay.
He's devastated that his son is going through this ordeal.
Right.
But he also sees a glimmer of hope in Michael's willingness to engage with Mr. Thompson.
Does he try to reconnect with Michael during this time?
He does, but cautiously.
Okay.
He knows he can't force Michael to change, that it has to come from within.
Hmm.
He writes letters sharing his own journey of redemption and offering support without judgment.
So there's still a lot of tension and unresolved issues between them.
Yes, but there are also hints of forgiveness and understanding starting to emerge.
Okay.
In one particularly moving scene, John visits Michael in prison, and they have a heart-to-heart conversation.
Wow.
They acknowledge the pain they've caused each other and express a desire to rebuild their relationship, albeit cautiously.
Sound like they're both taking tentative steps towards reconciliation.
They are, and the screenplay ends on a note of cautious optimism. Michael is released from prison a changed person.
Wow.
He renounces his past affiliation with the Patriots Front and dedicates himself to making amends for the harm he's caused.
Wow. So it's not a completely happy ending, but there's a sense of hope and the possibility of redemption for both John and Michael.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this screenplay so compelling.
Yeah.
It doesn't offer easy answers or simplistic solutions.
Right.
It grapples with the complexities of extremism, the long-lasting impact of trauma, and the difficult journey of breaking free from toxic ideologies.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways you think listeners should ponder?
I think the screenplay highlights the power of mentorship and human connection in challenging extremist views.
Yeah.
Both John and Michael benefited from individuals who saw their potential and offered guidance and support.
It also emphasizes the importance of critical thinking and exposure to different perspectives. It's so easy to get trapped in echo chambers, both online and in our personal lives.
And I think the screenplay reminds us that redemption, while difficult, is possible.
Yeah.
Both John and Michael, despite their mistakes, are ultimately able to break free from the grip of hate and to choose a different path.
That's a powerful message. So, for our listeners out there, what are some things they can do to combat extremism, whether within their own families or in the wider community?
I think it starts with open and honest conversations.
Right.
We need to be willing to challenge hateful rhetoric, to expose misinformation, and to promote empathy and understanding.
And we need to support organizations and initiatives that are working to counter extremism and to provide resources for those who are trying to leave these groups.
Exactly. It's a collective effort that requires vigilance, compassion, and a commitment to building a more inclusive and equitable society.
Well said. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive. It's been an eye-opening and thought-provoking journey. And for our listeners, we hope this conversation has left you with something to ponder, some new insights, and perhaps even a renewed sense of hope. We all have a role to play in combating extremism and creating a world where stories like John and Michael's become less common, not more,